Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Marketing Management. Sorry, let me just make that a little better. Marketing Management, Chapter 6, Understanding Consumer Behavior and Business Markets. Welcome, everyone. Now, consumer behavior is important because understanding it, and I guess you would have to use your marketing research to truly understand it, helps you in that it gives you the ability to understand the mindset of the people that you are trying to serve, your customers. If you don't understand the psychological variables, the psychological makeup, what makes them tick, you're going to do a really terrible job in marketing if you're really trying to market to their needs, which is what you should be doing. So, as such, you need to understand consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is a psychology course, really, and it's great for anybody who's a psych major. I always would think it's great for a psych major to minor in marketing or a marketing major to minor in psychology because the two disciplines are really well, they go well with each other. It's like sauerkraut and mustard on a hot dog. It really goes quite well. So tonight's learning objectives is to understand the value of knowing the consumer. I just spent the first minute or so discussing that. Consider the role of personal and psychological factors in consumer decision making. Appreciate the critical and complex role of cultural, situational, and social factors in a consumer purchase decision. Understand the consumer decision making process. Understand the differences between business to consumer, B2C, and B2B, which is a course that I do teach. I'm teaching that next semester, God willing. Understand the critical role of the buying center and each participant in the B2B process. Learn the B2B purchase decision process and different buying situations. Comprehend the role of technology and in business markets. And technology is becoming something ever more necessary. It's not even an extra anymore. It was a big deal back in the day. If you had a website, oh wow, that's a major improvement. 10 years ago, I feel 10 years ago, if you didn't have a website, you were archaic. But 10 years ago, I remember I was working somewhere and the big deal was to make a website, which I thought should have been made 5 years earlier than that. But having a website today is not like a big thing anymore. If you don't have a website, it's like you don't exist. You need to invest in technology. If you don't invest in technology, you are basically cutting off any revenue stream that you may have. Slide 4, we'll just expand it a bit over here so we have a better look at it, is the model of the consumer decision-making process. So marketing activities on the top left, let's start from the top left. Marketing activities affect consumer decision process, the value proposition, what is being proposed as far as value distribution, marketing communications. We also have environmental forces, affect consumer decision process. We have economic, technological, and political. Definitely political with respect to therapeutics and vaccines. There's definitely a pushback in the Democratic Party against vaccines. Not the concept of having a vaccine, but having a vaccine before Election Day, which I don't think they'll have, but obviously it's for political expediency. If there's a vaccine, there's a vaccine. And they stopped it. If they stopped it for a week, because apparently some people that were taking it in trials got sick, and they had to make sure that they weren't getting sick because of the vaccine, and they got sick for some other reason. All right, so there's a problem that needs to be recognized, meaning that there's an itch you need to scratch, something that you need to have fulfilled. Then you search for information. There's evaluation of alternative solutions. There's a product choice decision or service. And then there's post-purchase assessment. Were you happy with the deal? Were you not happy with the deal? And many times what sets in is cognitive dissonance, which is basically a disconnect between what you expected and what you got. So personal characteristics that play a great deal here is your age, your occupation, your lifestyle, and of course, gender roles. Marketers realize that changes in life stage, for example, graduating from college, getting married, or having a child, transforms an individual's buying habits and are referred to the family life cycle. So FLC is often more important than age. New parents need to care for baby no matter how old they are. Also, change in your age or your family life cycle stage changes purchases such as a car. For example, I just married off my third daughter. Up until now, from let's say the year 2000 and let's say 2002 till this year, I owned a minivan. Why? Because I had 5 children that I need to transport. But now that I've gotten rid of 3 kids, my lease was up. I downsized. Instead of getting a sedan, which is still not big enough because I still have 2 children left at home, I then got myself a small SUV. I ended up purchasing the Rogue, which is perfect for my family size. That's a perfect example of how my purchasing decision changed based on my life stage, where I'm at in life. Whereas, let's say if it was just my wife and myself, I may have opted for that vehicle because it's good in the snow, good in the rain, or I may have just opted to buy a small sedan like a Corolla or something of that type. People are influenced by their work environment, from the executive suite to the plant floor. People who work together tend to buy and wear similar clothes, shop at the same stores, and vacation at the same places. Lifestyle references and individuals' perspective on life and manifests itself in that person's activities, interests, and opinions. That is known as the AIO. In general, women have been adding new roles as they move on into the workforce and positions of political power. As we see, we have a female running for vice president of the United States. In the United States, this means that men and women are more likely to share responsibilities than live in a traditional household where the men work and women stay at home to raise children. And by the way, that has flipped in many instances where you have Mr. Mom or Daddy, Daddy staying home with the kids, which is fine as long as it's agreed upon and both parties are happy with that. There's no problem with that. It's happening quite often now. Next, we have what looks like a Venn diagram in slide number 6, chapter 6, psychological attributes. We look at your motivation, your attitude, your perception, how you bring perspective and understand what's happening in front of you, learning, and personality. Slide 7, motivation is the stimulating power that induces and then directs behavior. Something motivates you to behave a certain way. Attitude, a learned disposition to respond to an object or class of objects in a consistently favorable or unfavorable way. Slide number 8, we'll explain that, talks about different models of contemporary motivation. We have Maslow's hierarchy of need. The theory is that humans have wants and needs which influence their behavior. People advance only to the next level if the lower needs are met. And of course, the well-known key elements are 5 on the low end, starting at number 1. Number 1 being the lowest is your physiological, your food, your water, etc. Safety needs, love and social, self-esteem and self-actualization being all that you could be. The implications for marketing are individuals are not interested in luxuries until they have basic needs, food and shelter, met. If, God forbid, a person is starving to death, he really doesn't care about not having a nice car to drive. Hertzberg's 2-factor theory, certain factors in the workplace result in job satisfaction. We have motivators versus hygiene factors. Motivators, challenging work, for example. Nobody wants to be bored at work. Nobody wants to sit there and scan documents all day. Recognition, people want to feel recognized. And, of course, responsibility. You want to feel that you are responsible for your own outcomes and, of course, responsible for the outcomes of other individuals as well. Hygiene factors, status, job security, salary, and benefits. Satisfying hygiene factors does not create a loyal employee or customer. For a company to really create satisfied employees, it's important to focus on motivators. And one of the examples of motivators is making sure that there's valence, that what you give them is something that they're actually interested in. I go into this extensively in Principles of Management, but valence is so important because if what you were given as a motivator, the amount of money or bonus is not adequate, then it can have the opposite effect and demotivate you. I actually had a true story once, and an ex-employee of mine told me that he was working at a construction site somewhere, and the boss came around Christmas time and gave him a $20 bill as his bonus. He returned it to him and said, "Hey man, you probably need it more than I do, because a $20 bonus is a joke. It's not really something that would motivate anybody." Aldel Furr's ERG theory, expansion on Maslow's hierarchy, placing needs in 3 categories. So he basically truncated Maslow into existence, relatedness, and growth. In the marketing area, as far as implications are concerned, people need a sense of belonging and social interaction. Creating a relationship with the customers extends the customer's satisfaction with the product. So that relationship building is super important. McClelland's achievement motivation theory, and this really pops up in organizational theory, and I believe also in principles of management, you see this. There are three categories of needs, and people differ in the degree in which the various needs influence their behavior. So there's a nexus between the needs and how they influence behavior. You have a need for achievement, okay, that's going to create a certain personality, need for power, and need for affiliation. And especially need for affiliation could be potentially dangerous because you're more in tune with, or you're more concerned with whether or not you're liked rather than whether or not you're doing the right thing. Marketing implications: companies can be successful targeting one of the three basic needs, or all of them for that matter. We move on to the next slide. Any questions, anybody? Okay, I guess not. Perception is a system to select, organize, and interpret information to create a useful, informed picture of the world. So in other words, your perception is how you view your reality. There's something called selective awareness, implies focusing on what is relevant to you, what you are aware of. Selective distortion implies information can be misunderstood or made to fit existing beliefs. And the popular word for that is creating a narrative, right? We're always saying the left is trying to make a narrative, the right is trying to make a narrative. In other words, they're trying to create a conversation, a national conversation. And then something called selective retention implies storing in memory stimuli that support existing beliefs and attitudes, bolstering what you have already in your mind. Let's just see the bottom of the slide. Is anything we could speak about over here? Let's talk about what's written below the slide in selective awareness. An individual is exposed on average to, believe it or not, 2,000 to 3,000 messages daily. So we are bombarded. Many times we feel exhausted mentally. It's because we are literally bombarded with 2,000 to 3,000 messages daily. People cannot process, let alone retain all those messages. So they employ a psychological tool known as selective awareness to kind of filter out everything, to help them focus on what is relevant and eliminate what is not. The challenge for marketers is breaking through people's decision rules, which are designed to reject the vast majority of stimuli they see every single day. Even if a stimulus is noticed, there's no guarantee it'll be interpreted accurately. Information can be misunderstood or made to fit existing beliefs, a process known as selective distortion, which is quite dangerous, can actually lead to terrible decision making. Learning: any change in the content or organization of long-term memory or behavior. Conditioning creates an association between two stimuli. Classical conditioning promotes learning through stimulus and response. Okay, simple. Pavlov's dogs. Anybody ever heard of Pavlov? Where they would condition him to, ring a bell and would salivate. You remember learning that? Classical conditioning promotes learning through stimulus and response. Operating conditioning rewards desirable behavior, which is also part of Pavlovian learning. Cognitive learning is more active and requires information to work through problems and life situations. Learning is any change in the content or organization of long-term memory or behavior. Learning occurs when information is processed and added to long-term memory. Marketers can therefore affect learning by providing information using a message, format, and delivery that will encourage customers to retain the information in one's memory. Classical conditioning seeks to have people learn by associating a stimulus, marketing information, brand, experience, and response, otherwise known as attitude, feeling, and behavior. Many companies today use a variety of music genres, music types in their ads, and these are designed to connect with specific target audiences, for example, hip-hop, rock music, etc. For example, ads for products targeted at young people use current artists, while older target markets like baby boomers respond to music from the 60s and the 70s. This is conditioned learning by connecting the stimulus, which is the music, with a response, a positive association with a particular brand, which will hopefully lead to a purchase. The other type of conditioning, known as operant conditioning, entails rewarding a desirable behavior. For example, a product trial or purchase with a positive outcome that reinforces the behavior. For example, many different types of food retailers offer product samples in their stores. Frito-Lay, for instance, offers a free in-store sample of Doritos. I love Doritos. For the express purpose of getting people to try the product, enjoy the product, and finally purchase a big bag of Doritos. Enjoying the Doritos reinforces the positive attributes of the product, the spiciness, the texture, and increases the probability of the purchase. Since the consumer must choose to try the product for operant conditioning to occur, Frito-Lay wants to make the trial as easy as possible to facilitate an upcoming purchase. Personality. Each person has a set of consistent, enduring personal characteristics. We go into this in depth in Principles of Management. We talk about agreeableness, somebody who has negative affectivity. Those are certain personality types, and they also play a great role in psychology vis-a-vis consumer behavior. Those characteristics can be measured to identify differences between individuals. So most believe personality characteristics are formed at a relatively early age and can be defined in terms of traits such as extroversion, and that's one of the traits we speak about in Principles of Management, instability, agreeableness, openness to new experiences. So if you want somebody to get into a product that requires a certain level of, taking chances, for example, if you were advertising an amusement park and you were advertising a bungee jumping ride, obviously you would be appealing to customers who have an openness to new experiences. You couldn't get me to do that for no money in the world, but because that's not my personality trait. I'm not open to new experiences like that. Maybe in some sense, but not like that. So these are also conscientiousness, which is something that's very, very important. So these core traits then lead to outward characteristics, which are what people notice. And that kind of builds a profile of you, and then people know what you're all about. External factors shape consumer choices. Your cultural. So culture is a system of values, beliefs, and morals shared by a particular group of people that permeate over time. Learning a target market's culture is essential to creating an effective marketing strategy. Not understanding a culture may mean poor market acceptance of a product, especially when you don't respect cultural variables such as religion, mode of dress, etc. A part of that cultural rubric is language, values, nonverbal communication, and of course your subculture, which is a group within the culture that shares similar cultural artifacts created by differences in ethnicity, religion, race, which is your physical features, or geography. While part of the larger culture, subcultures are also different from each other. The United States is perhaps the best example of a country with a strong national culture that also has a number of distinct subcultures. So you can have the American mentality, but within it you can have African Americans, Latinos, whites, American Indian, Native Indians, all are the subculture of the greater America. Nonverbal communication is the means of communicating through facial expressions, eye behavior, gestures, posture, and other body language. And by the way, it could also be through clothing. Your clothing could signal a certain communication. External factors, your physical surroundings, your personal circumstances, things that are going on, and of course the time. Time is a critical situation factor that affects individuals throughout the consumer choice process. An emerging consumer trend in many industrialized countries is the willingness to trade time for money, because time is something you can never get back. And it's a very, very important commodity and a very rare commodity. We continue with slide 14. External factors shape consumer choices. So you have social factors such as your family, household life cycle is the fundamental, is trying to understand the role of family in the consumer choice process. The traditional family life cycle consists of a fairly structured set of activities that begins when single people get married in their 20s, for example, start a family in their 30s, raise kids 40s to 50s, watch as the kids grow up and leave the home from your 50s to 60s, and finally enter into retirement 60s and beyond. And things change. What you purchase, who you purchase things for, those things change there. Social class, of course, is a big factor. Opinion leaders and market mavens, people that know what they're talking about or think they know what they're talking about. And of course, reference groups, people that you refer to when you want to buy something, people that you look up to. Let's just read a little bit below the slide over here. Most Western cultures have no formal social class systems. However, there's an informal social ranking. It's not like a caste system that we have in India. These informal systems exert influence over an individual's attitudes and behavior. Two factors drive social status. Success-driven factors have the greatest effect on social status and include education, income, and, of course, one's occupation. Innate factors, the secondary category, do not result from anything the individual has done, but rather are characteristics the individual has inherited from birth. Social class is not the result of a single factor, such as income, but rather a complex interaction among many characteristics. While some social class drivers are not in the individual's control, people do make choices about their education and occupation, which can transform them and boost them into a different social class. Therefore, it is possible for people, particularly in societies providing educational opportunities, to move into new social classes based on their achievements. This is one of the things that Trump has touted himself for, these opportunity zones, to help people living in the inner cities leave that world of limitation and be able to grow and move on up the social ladder in America. In addition, the availability of easy credit, creative pricing, and new financing arrangements enable and even encourage people to engage in aspirational purchases, things that they've aspired to buy for many years, which are products bought outside the individual's social standing. You have the money, and let's say you're a lower middle class, all of a sudden you buy yourself an Acura, or you buy yourself an Infiniti. So you're a lower middle class, now you're buying something and you're signaling that you aspire to move up the social rankings. So people seek out opinion leaders for a variety of reasons, including unfamiliarity with a product, reassurance about a product selection before purchasing, and anxiety resulting from high involvement with the purchase of a particular product. Anyone whose opinions are valued by the individual can be an opinion leader. So as long as you value their opinion, they become an opinion leader. It's not an official position. It's not like something you inherit from your dad. It's something that is based on whether or not people respect you. A new group whose members are called market mavens have information about many kinds of products, places to shop, and other facets of the market. And that is basically something that is changing over time. A new group whose just lost my train of thought. Another facet of markets, and the members initiate discussions with consumers and respond to requests from consumers for market information. The key difference between opinion leaders and market mavens is the focus on their knowledge. Market mavens have a broader understanding and expertise that goes beyond products to include other elements of the purchase decision, such as shopping, experience, and, of course, price. We move on. A reference group is a group of individuals whose beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors influence positively or negatively the beliefs, attitudes, and behavior of an individual. Three characteristics are used to categorize reference groups: association, desirability, and the degree of affiliation with the product or service or with whatever is going on in the market. The level of involvement influences the process. Involvement activated by a person's background, your aspirational focus, like upgrade yourself, and environment at decision-making time. What is the environment that you're in? Sometimes you have high involvement learning. People spend more time in the decision-making process and report higher satisfaction, especially true when you're buying very expensive products. And low involvement learning, routine or relatively unimportant decision-making based on facts that you've already gained from your prior experience. Just as a silly example, where to buy milk. You don't have to think about, okay, which grocery store am I going to buy milk in and what kind of milk I'm going to buy. This is a decision that I've made 100 times before. I don't really need to deliberate. Whereas if I'm buying a new car or I'm buying a new computer, I'm buying a new house, there's more that goes into it. Slide number 16, exhibit 4.10, consumer decision-making process. Number one, you have a problem recognition. You realize there's a problem, something that you need to solve, something that you need to take care of because it's something that you're lacking or something that you really, really want. Search for information, evaluation of your alternatives, product choice decisions, and your post-purchase decision, whether or not you're happy after the purchase or not. Slide number 17, problem recognition is basically divided into real state versus preferred state. People live in the perceived reality of the present time, otherwise known as the real state. At the same time, people also have desires that reflect how they would like to feel or live in the present time, and this is known as one's preferred state. When the two states are in balance, the individual does not require anything and no purchase occurs. However, where there's a discrepancy in the two states, a problem is created and the consumer decision-making process begins. So the discrepancy or gap can be created by internal or external drivers. Internal drivers are basic human needs such as hunger and security. You want to look at it from in terms of Maslow, your physiological. Someone is hungry, which is your real state, and wants to eat something, which is your preferred state. So you're hungry, which is reality where you're at, and you want to be full. So this will lead to a number of choices: eat at home, dine out, or go to the grocery store. It may even trigger other options such as calling a friend, which addresses a need for social interaction. External drivers happen as people interact with the world. Some of these triggers result from a company's marketing efforts, but most arise when an individual experiences something that creates a desire, like seeing a friend driving a new car or hearing about a good new restaurant, which spurs you on, like, hey, I want to do that as well. We move on. Do you hear any background noise, ladies? Do you hear anything in the background that's disturbing?
No, we don't.
Okay, just making sure. You know, it's hard. We're zooming. I'm zooming at home. Behind my wall is a shower. One of my family members is taking a shower, and I hear singing coming from the shower. And I just want to make sure that you don't hear the singing. And obviously, it could impact the sound here, but that's just the way it is. So a couple notices. Okay, so the consumer decision making process: search for information. You have minimal information search, limited information search, and then extensive information search. Let's look at the bottom of the slide in the teacher's notes. Okay, a couple notices, for example, the low fuel light comes on as they're driving home from a party. The driver recalls their local station is on the way home, and without any additional information, not looking at their phone near his gas station to me, they stop at the station and they fill up the car. This is an example of minimal information search. All they have to do is just think about where the last place they filled up on gas and just go there. The same couple now finds out they're going to have a baby and realizes their Mercedes-Benz C-Class coupe has to be replaced with a more practical vehicle. They engage in a thorough information reviewing car magazines, soliciting opinions from friends and family, conducting online research on sites like Edmunds or KBB. I never heard of KBB, but Edmunds is a car site, and test driving a number of new cars and SUVs before making a final purchase decision. This is an example of extensive information search. Between these two extremes is something called limited information search, which is, as the name implies, involves some, albeit restricted, search for information. Suppose the wife from the couple in our previous example has a cold. The husband stops at the drugstore to get her some cold medicine. At the cold medicine aisle, he scans the boxes looking for one that will provide maximum relief. For his wife's symptoms, she's cranky, making him crazy. He needs something that'll make her better right away. He may even ask the pharmacist for help in selecting the best choice because he's looking for somebody to help him choose it. At this point, he's engaged in a limited search for information. Generally, people do only the amount of information search they believe is necessary to make the best decision. Okay, we move on. There's something called internal information sources. These are areas where you look for information. We're in slide number 19. As the name implies, are all information stored in memory and accessed by the individual. This is always the first place people consider for information. Past experiences, conversations, research, pre-existing beliefs, and attitudes create an extensive internal database that is tapped by the individuals once the problem is recognized. External information sources include independent groups, sources, personal associations, friends and family, marketer-created information, automobile manufacturer's website, for example, for advertising. And by the way, BMW has an amazing website. You should check it out. And experiences, product trial, and demonstrations. Ladies, I just want to take a quick break. I want to get myself a drink. Just going to pause the video. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Sorry, needed to get a drink of water. So let's go back to slide number 19, internal information sources, such as the name implies, are all information stored in memory and accessed by the individual. You build up mental files throughout your life, things that you remember, things that you see, and as you need it, you access it. This is always the first place people consider for information because it's the easiest place. It's stored in here. You're able to get access to your mind instantly. This includes past experiences, conversations, research, pre-existing beliefs and attitudes. Create an extensive internal database that is tapped by the individual once the problem is recognized. You have external information sources, such as which include independent groups, your sources, personal associations, friends and family, marketer created information, your automobile manufacturer's website advertising, and experiences such as product trial and demonstration. Product trial is very effective because it lets you test drive the product and you gain comfort with it. Slide number 20. The consumer decision-making process set of alternatives. So let's just look at the slide and then we'll look at what's on bottom. So you have an information search, define the set of alternatives, and that leads to complete set, awareness set, and considered evoked set, which is where you want to get to. So let's look at the bottom of the slide. People begin with a very large set of possible alternatives known as the complete set. This set includes a variety of options across different brands and perhaps even products, which is, now we start with the awareness. Now we're going to go into the awareness set. This reduces the number of options to the set because there's just so many options out there. You have to kind of filter it down. So the awareness set reduces the number of options. At a minimum, the number of different product categories, if considered, will be reduced and some brands discarded. Interestingly, the awareness set can include choices across product categories. In our example, it is still possible for a particular brand of cell phone to remain in the awareness set despite the fact they are different product categories. From the awareness set, individuals conduct an additional information search based on additional information. So this is what they're aware of. They do a little bit more research and evaluation. And they finally filter it down to the evoked set. So for example, you have a larger group of cell phones. You're looking for a smartphone. Then you break it down to, let's say, 10 different companies. And then you say, you know what, I really want to break it down to one of three phones, either an iPhone, a Samsung, or a Motorola, or a Pixel phone. And then you have those final three phones to choose from. And then based on your information search, your research with your friends, what they have, going down to the store, checking it out for yourself, going on YouTube, doing a shootout to see which product is better. Then you finally come up with what you want, and then you go from there. Any questions thus far? Anybody? Okay, so
No questions.
what? What'd you say?
No questions.
Okay, so not all purchases are made strictly for rational reasons, right? Haven't we bought something because we just felt like buying it? Because we weren't sure, we just needed it, maybe we'll need it. So indeed, product choices can be emotional choices based on attitude about a product or based on attributes of the product depending on the situation. Frequently, the product choice encompasses a mix of all three. An individual, let's say, enjoys yogurt and taking a break to enjoy a snack, which is an emotionally based reaction. That same person considers Chobani Greek yogurt the best choice for a healthy yogurt, which is your attitude-based aspect of you. Finally, the individual considers Chobani Greek yogurt to be better tasting than other competitors, attribute-based. So in other words, it starts basically from your basic emotional, and then it ends up as an attribute. You say, hey, by the way, I was hungry, I needed a break, and this and that and the other. And yeah, you know what? Chobani is the best choice. I like it. I like it better than anybody else. So attitude-based choices tend to be more holistic, using summary impressions, a summary of a group of, you take all the impressions that you had and you summarize it in your mind rather than specific attributes to evaluate the options and affect even important purchases such as a car or a house. It is not uncommon for beliefs to affect the actual product decision. For example, it is important to buy cars made in America or the opposite. Foreign cars are better than American products. Unfortunately, for years, that has been the case, especially with cars. I don't really want to get into an unpatriotic conversation, but unless you're buying a pickup truck, American-made cars are nothing compared to Japanese cars. Believe me, I know. I've had both, and I can tell you with unfortunate certainty that the Japanese cars that I've owned two Hondas, two Toyotas, and I currently own a Nissan Rogue, and they are far superior to any American car that I ever drove. Unfortunately, American cars have a long way to go before they, pick up speed in my book. Physical surroundings, another thing that leads to purchases. The environment for the purchase, from store colors to the employees. Walk into an Apple store, that feeling, you have all these, people that are experts surrounding you. Consumers respond to their physical environment. Shopping is a social activity, as many people do that around the holiday season, or if they just you don't want to get out of the house, especially during the pandemic. If you have the ability to go somewhere that's in a green zone and you just want to let loose a little bit. So it's influenced by the social interaction at the time of purchase. Shopping alone or with a friend can influence the purchase decision. Time pressures or the lack thereof will impact decision making. An individual's mood influences the purchase decision. People in a positive state of mind are more likely to browse. Negative mood states are less tolerant and lead to increased impulse and compulsive purchases. Yes, if you are in a bad mood, all right, what do you do when you shop when you're in a bad mood? You look for food, you spend money on clothing, things that you will not necessarily need, and consumers know that. And marketers know that consumers flock to purchases when they are vulnerable. So the consumer decision-making process continues product choice factors. So the product choice decision, what, where, how much, when, and of course, payment, the method of payment. And that's really where the world is right now. We have Quick Pay, Zelle, we have PayPal, so many other different ways of paying. And the fact that we have ease of payment, for example, in Amazon, you have one click. You press a button, you get a notification that you've paid, and then boom, it's emailed to you. Now you can track the product. Literally, I have bought things in less than 10 seconds. And it's amazing. And it makes people want to buy more because you feel like you're not even really exerting anything. It's just it's 2 seconds of your time. It was amazing. I was at work today, and one of my coworkers said, we really need X, Y, and Z. As she's talking, I'm on Amazon, pressing, and then boom, it's ordered. It'll be here in 2 days. It's an amazing thing. We move on to slide number 20.
I feel like now with COVID, people are stuck at home. It's also exciting to get more stuff.
You know what? You really hit the nail on the head. I just want to take a quick show you how right you are. This I showed to my class last night, and it was unbelievable. I'm about to do this. Amazon stock price from March 1st to today. Okay? That really proves your point. There's like a little graph I showed here. I don't know if this is going to be the same one. Hold on a second. Let me go back. Amazon Inc. Historical price and data. If I don't find it, all right. So today at close, it was at $3,286.33. It went up $79 today. All right. Can you imagine? $79 today.
That's crazy.
Today. All right. And let's go back. So today it was at $3,224.94. All right. At the open, and the close was $3,286.33. Right? Let's look at the stock price right before pandemic hit. Okay? Here we are. We're in the midst of COVID. Let's go to March 4th. Okay? What was it at March 4th? $1,975.83. All right? It went from $1,975.83 all the way up to $3,286.33.
Wow.
Right?
It's crazy. People live off Amazon.
Can you imagine if you would have invested, forget about Amazon, look at Apple. If you would have invested $100,000 in Apple January 1st, 2020, and sold it right at the stock split, what would you have done? Like you see amazing things. It's literally unbelievable. Like I cannot, and here's proof that this is as a result of the pandemic, because the pandemic hit like March 20th approximately. Am I right? Something like that.
Yeah, around there, perm time, right after perm.
Right. Let's say around March 20th. Okay. And what did people do? How did people shop? You couldn't go to the stores. Okay, so you could go to groceries, fine. So you were able to go get your basic groceries. What about toilet paper? What about socks, shoes, underwear, undershirts, shirts? And I bought 5 or 6 shirts online. It was a pleasure. And by the way, the quality, Amazon's quality is very, very good.
Yeah.
It's not like I have Amazon pants. I have no problem wearing Amazon pants. It doesn't bother me. I don't feel like I'm wearing an off-brand mark. And it's mind-boggling. I am absolutely blown away here. So it's 3,286.33. I just want to look at to see what it was at the beginning of the year. Here, January 2nd, 2020. 1,898. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's literally going up almost every day. It rarely went down. I mean, it's going to bubble out eventually. But yeah, pretty awesome stuff. Okay, let's move on. So, dissonance. Let's talk about dissonance. After you buy something, you're not so happy with it. High involvement, large purchases often lead to a level of doubt or anxiety known as post-purchase dissonance. Most normal people will not flip out if you buy a cheap pair of shoes. You buy a $25, $30 dress, I don't think any of you are going to go crazy, right? You go buy a skirt for $25, you get crazy afterwards? Anybody lose sleep over a $30 skirt? I didn't think so. If you buy a gown for $600, then, I don't know, do you like it? Does it fit me right? Can I use it again? I don't know. The higher the involvement, the more serious the purchase is, the more anxiety and possible dissonance. So most purchases occur with little or no dissonance. The likelihood of dissonance increases if one or more of the following purchase decisions attributes are met. A high degree of commitment that is not easily revoked, such as buying a house or a car, or leasing a car. A high degree of importance for the customer. Alternatives are rated equally and the purchase decision is not clear. Also, the individual's own predisposition for anxiety can create additional dissonance. So you have people that are unfortunately very anxious and have a lot of issues, so they're going to be affected by this anxiety more than others. Marketers are acutely interested in learning how customers use the product for several reasons. First, it is important the customer knows how to use the product correctly. Because if they use it incorrectly, they're not going to be happy. And if they're not happy, they're going to tell friends, wow, this thing doesn't work. Yes, it does work, but marketing did a poor job in telling you how it works. Second, a satisfied customer means a greater likelihood of additional purchases. And not only that, you're going to bring your friends over as well into your camp. Environmentally friendly products encourage proper use and disposal. Satisfaction / dissatisfaction are evaluated in two dimensions. Most products are evaluated in two dimensions: instrumental performance and symbolic performance. Instrumental performance relates to the actual performance features of the product and answers the question, did the product do what it's supposed to do? Symbolic performance refers to the image building aspects of the product and answers the question, did the product make me feel better about myself? Which is super important. More often than not, that's the thing that you're really trying to go after. All right, let's look at slide number 25. Let's blow it up so we can see it better. Differences between business and consumer markets. Let's go through some of them. This is a great exhibit. Relationship with customers. In B2B, invest more in maintaining personal relationships. The long term, the high stakes. You know, Raytheon and the government, Raytheon makes missiles. They're going to have a very, very close relationship. Consumer market, impersonal, exists through electronic communication. Nobody really gets very, very close to a sneaker. I mean, they do in a sense if you're a real athlete and you're big. A regular person buys shoes, for example, they'll buy whatever's comfortable, what's on sale. Number and size of customers. With B2B, few but larger customers. Few customers. How many people are buying airplanes? You look at how many airplane companies are there. There's Airbus, there's Boeing, there's other companies. There's not like 50 companies making commercial airlines. Consumer market, more customers but buying smaller or less frequent quantities. Let's talk about complexity of supply chain. In B2B, direct from supplier to manufacturer. In the consumer market, complex with products moving through the channel to reach the consumer, especially if it's coming from China, from one hand to the next, to the next, to the next. You could look at the rest of 6.9. It's quite fascinating, very, very interesting. Let's look at it. You can look at it later. Differences between business and consumer markets. Again, from the chart we just mentioned, relationship with customers, number and size of customers, geographic concentration. B2B businesses tend to be concentrated geographically. For example, Pittsburgh Steel, Trump is really doing a lot of campaigning in Pennsylvania and those areas where there's coal and steel and whatnot. Complexity of buying process and the complexity of the supply chain itself. Demand for products and services is different in a business market. Product demand differs on 3 dimensions. Number 1, derived demand. What is derived demand? For example, if there's an increase in Ford making cars and trucks, there'll be an increase in Goodyear tires. There'll be an increase in glass, an increase in seat components, wires, okay? All the different things that go into a car. Fluctuating demand, the difference between consumer and business product demand. Acceleration effect. And then we have inelastic demand, which producers buy raw materials even if the price rises. Okay, and as the price rise doesn't really affect the demand as much. If you look at the bottom, it talks about it. Inelastic demand. Business products experience fairly inelastic demand, meaning changes in demand are not significantly affected by changes in price. Certain things, if you buy something and there's a change in price, there'll be a tremendous drop. Okay. Slide 28 shows it to you in terms of economics. I'm not going to go into this. This is not an economics class. Slide 29, let's expand it so we can get a better look at it. Factors influencing buying situations, the nature of the purchase, the number of people involved in the decision. Many times in a business where you're buying a new computer system, many people have to weigh in, IT, purchasing, accounting, etc. Number of people involved in the decision, as mentioned. Understanding of the product being purchased, time frame for the decision. 3 different buying situations: straight rebuy, simple, bottle of milk, I know where to go, I know where to get it. Modified rebuy, I need to make some information search, and a new purchase, which means I have to have a heavy involvement in it. I've never bought it before. You purchase your first home, you purchase your first car, there's a lot of information that goes into it, and frankly, the first time I bought I went from a flip phone to a smartphone, it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to get. Buying centers, a number of individuals with a stake in the purchase decision come together to form a buying center that manages the purchase decision process and ultimately makes the decision. All right, buying center participants. We have users, actual consumer of the product, initiators, could be users or executives who start the process, influencers, individuals in and out of company that affect decisions, gatekeeper, controls access to key participants in the process, and of course, deciders. These are people, person or persons responsible for making the final decision. Marketing challenges in buying centers. Who is part of the buying center? Who are the people who make those decisions? Who are the most significant influencers? What are the decision criteria for evaluating the various product options? Especially, this is a very important question you ask yourself in B2B, and of course, who is your target market? We also have companies and industries that are set up by NAICS codes. NAICS, this is as old as can be. Basically, a NAICS code is called the North American Industrial Classification System, where you start off with the general. Let's say you look at telecommunication, the broader category. It will have a large number, and as you move down from telecommunication all the way down to cell phones will have a smaller number. And the purpose of this is to identify what industry you're looking at to study with respect to finance. You want to make sure, you want to look at benchmarking, so you have to know what your NAICS code is. Also, another concept: original equipment manufacturer purchases, people to buy the original parts that go into things. End user purchases, your capital equipment, materials, repairs, and operation items. Your light bulbs, the things that you need to do to repair your products, and of course keep things operational. You have players in the business market, your resellers, your government, and your institutions, such as hospitals, religious institutions, etc. Exhibit 6.14, slide 36, is the model of business market consumer decision process. You have your problem recognition, define the need, and product specifications. So this is slightly different. It starts off with problem recognition, both B2C and B2B, but as we move on in the B2B universe, define the need and product specifications, because it's all about specs, especially dealing with the military. Come up with, we need a new fighter jet. That's our problem recognition. We need a new fighter jet. We need a generation 6 or generation 5. So we have to define the specs, search for suppliers, seek sales proposals or response to RFPs, requests for proposals, make the purchase decision, and then we have post-purchase evaluation of product and vendor to see if they've done well. and this is important if we want to continue to do business. So in the problem recognition stage, we're in slide 37, to define the need and product specifications. We can have a request for proposal known as the RFP, seek sales proposals in response to RFP, and then we start comparing them. Product specifications should be clearly defined so that everyone inside and outside the firm understand, and this way you get good estimates. Request for proposal should achieve the details needed. Salespeople should get involved early to drive the bus in that respect. Two common methods in search for suppliers. Companies create a list of preferred or approved suppliers, search for and identify potential suppliers, either through internet or through Thomas Global Register, which is another way of getting it. You seek sales proposals in response to the RFP, request from a number of vendors. Getting more information is good, even when there is a preferred vendor. Additional proposals help in negotiating with the preferred vendor. Within the RFP, we have specifies how the vendor's products meet the specs, which is important for you to be able to summarize and understand it, and allows the proposal company to include additional information, which will help you make the decision. Slide 41, making the decision. You have the product choice, financial criteria, value criteria, and of course, your service criteria, which are all important factors in the purchase decision. Supplier choice, decision makers know a bad decision can be made even if the product is right, but the vendor is wrong. A good product, bad vendor, hard to deal with, hard terms, they don't respond to your emails, they don't respond to your requests. Reliability is the vendor's ability to meet the contract's obligations. Also, will the vendor go above and beyond what is specified in the contract? Personal and organizational factors. Personal factors refers to the needs, desires, and objectives of those involved in the purchase decision. What are the motivations of the key players? Promotions, raise, impress, management. Key organizational factors is risk tolerance. How much tolerance to risk do you have? So, within the post-purchase evaluation of product and supplier, you have to assess product performance, consider the level of support provided by the seller, and expect follow-up after sale. Here's the final slide, something that we have a little bit of a YouTube video we'll show shortly, electronic data interchange. This is known as e-procurement. We have industry purchasing sites, business function sites, extranet to major suppliers, and company buying sites. So let's just look at the last slide. Let's look at the commentary in the bottom. Industry purchasing sites. Industries have formed websites to streamline and standardize the e-procurement process. You go one-stop shop straight to the industry, to the particular company that you're dealing with. Steel, chemicals, paper, and automated manufacturers have created integrated websites to assist their own purchasing departments in online purchasing and supplier selection. Business function sites. Certain business functions have websites that standardize purchasing. For example, individual utilities used to negotiate by phone to buy and sell electricity with each other. However, today, purchase electricity by utility companies is now done over a website dedicated to energy management. You have other companies that sell you energy directly. Extranet to major suppliers. Many companies have set up direct links to approved suppliers to make the purchase easier and move it closer to the frontline decision makers. Office Depot, for example, has a number of direct relationships using EDI with thousands of companies. And of course, it helps with just-in-time delivery as well. Straight, we know exactly when to send you stuff, we know what's running low, etc. Company buying sites. Many large companies have created their own websites to assist vendors, request for proposals, and other relevant suppliers' information, as well as some contact information are accessible for review.